This is Lisa with Queen Bee Creations. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, and I go live right here on Facebook and YouTube every Monday and Thursday at 2:30. Usually I do a fun fold card, but lately I've been asked about what is a hybrid embossing folder. And so today we're going to be using one, and we're going to use it a couple different ways. And so I'm excited to show you how this is done. This is a very popular bundle that has gone sold out a couple times, and I noticed the dies are back in stock. They're low inventory. It's super popular. So if you want me to keep an eye out for when everything's available, or if you're looking at something and it's gone back ordered and you want to know when it's available, let me know and I can keep track of those things for you. That's what I'm here for. I look at the website every single day and I know what's coming and what's going, and can always check those things for you. That's kind of my job as your Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, is to help you figure those things out. So I'm going to put you down onto my desk and we're going to get started on today's card. I think you're really going to like this idea of a hybrid embossing folder. So this is our beautiful card, and you can see that I've used the embossing folder back here as a standard embossing folder, but you'll notice I've also embossed this leaf here, and it's been die cut, and that was done all in one pass through the cut and emboss machine. And so I'm excited to show you how that's done. So I'm using the Changing Leaves bundle. As I said, this has been super popular, and particularly we are using the dies. And as I said, you can use these as regular dies. We've got our shapes, and then we've got some leaves that are on their own, and then this one will cut out the various stamps. So if we were to stamp these images, these dies would cut them out. But what if we don't want to stamp them? What if we just want to die cut them and we want them dry embossed? Well, we can take our embossing folder, and it's kind of raised on one side, and then you want to set the die on top of that so that the images fit right into it. Now I can put a large 6x6 piece of paper in here and it will cut all of them for me and give me a little bit of leftover. Or I can take just a scrap like I'm going to do, and I'm going to lay the scrap over the leaf I want used. You can see this large leaf. That's what I'm using. And so as I run this through, you can see it's going to die cut and it's going to dry emboss. And I'm going to feed that through the machine. Our cut and emboss machine has plates that are labeled. So I'm going to use number 1, and then I'm going to cover it with number 4. So we're not using the clear number 2 plates at all. We're just using 1 and 4. And I'm going to crank this through the cut and emboss machine. And you can see we now have this cut and embossed all in one step. Isn't that cool? Hi, Deborah. I see you're coming from Northern California. Where at in Northern California? I was born and raised Petaluma. Okay, so then I can also, as I said, I can use this as a standard embossing folder. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to take one of the layers of my card. And so I've decided that I'm going to do this one at 3 3/4 by 5. And then I'm just going to place this in the machine. And I'm kind of, I mean, that other leaf is on there, but I'm trying not to like center it in that. I don't want to, put that leaf over the top of this leaf. I kind of want to move it around. And so I'm going to find one where it's going to come in at a different angle. And then I'm going to run that through the machine. Again, using 1 and 4. And so there we have just a standard dry embossed layer. Isn't that fun? To make our card, I'm going to use a standard card base. So this is 5.5 by 8.5, scored at 4 1/4. So it's half of a sheet of cardstock cut in half and scored in half. And then I've got a standard layer, which is 4 by 5 1/4 that I'm going to use as the inside of my card. See, that gives us the standard outside frame that we normally have. And then if we were to put this over the top of it, we'd have that same size frame around this one. But you'll notice I changed it up a little bit, and I made the outside one a little bit wider and the inside one a little narrower. So I'm going to use this 4 by 5 1/4 on the inside of my card. And then I'm going to use this one that is 3 7/8 by 5 1/8. And I'm going to layer that on the top. But I wanted to give it a little bit of extra something, and I played around with the twine, and I had made a bow, and I could not figure out where I wanted to put that bow. It just didn't work for me. Oh, I thought I had saved it out here where I could show you. There we go. So it's really pretty. I mean, I really like it. I think I'll use it on another card. I just think it was a little too big for down here. I mean, I suppose I could cut these longer, but they kind of lay over the top of the sentiment. I don't know. I didn't like it so well, but I do like the 3 of them together. I'm definitely going to use that on another card. I think that twine is really pretty. But for this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the 3 of them, and I'm just going to wrap them around the layer. So I'm going to grab the end of each one, and I'm going to determine about how long it needs to be to go across the front and then connect on the back side. Okay. And then what I want to do is I want to take a couple of mini glue dots, and I'm going to stick them on the back. The mini glue dots actually are kind of a little thicker than our standard adhesives, and they're really great at grabbing a hold of the different ribbons and twines and those sorts of things, because you can push them down into it and they kind of get a better grip. So you can't really tell on camera, but because they're thicker and gooier, they're really grabbing a hold of that twine. And then I can wrap it around, and we're going to do 2 more on the other side. So I want to go about the same height. And then I'm just going to wrap these guys around. And you can choose if you want them to go straight across, or if you want them to twist, or you know, how you want them to look on the front of the card. I think I just went with them straight across. You can twist if you would like. And then you're going to fold them over and push them into these glue dots. The other thing I have done with them is I have covered them up with a piece of tear and tape and then just not removed the back. And they kind of slip out. The tear and tape is not thick enough to hold it. The twines, they come as a set like this, and they are Night of Navy, Garden Green, and Copper Clay. But I am going to use my tear and tape just as a layer, because again, it's going to cover up the back of those, and so it's going to keep that sticky over the top. And then with the dimension of the glue dots underneath, it's really going to hold that well. And so those are not going to move. Those are going to stay stationary across the front of my card. And then I'm going to put this over the top of that other layer. As I said, this is 5 by 3 3/4. And so I'm going just 1/8 of an inch bigger. And we're going to put that on this. This is copper clay, and we're going to put it on basic beige, which is a new neutral color that Stampin' Up! Has added. And see, so now those twines are buried underneath here. Now you could choose to put a layer of dimensionals under there and pop this up. If you do that, I would put the rest of things flat. If you're going to be laying this flat, then you can add dimensions behind this, because when you're mailing, you have to keep it down to 1 layer of dimensionals or it gets too thick and the post office charges extra. Now, if you're going to deliver your card in person, by all means, do a couple layers of dimensionals. I think it's awesome when demonstrators do that. I just don't like to pay extra postage. I guess I'm just cheap that way. I do enough of that with my fun fold cards because they end up a little bit on the thick side. So my tapes are running out. I'm going to need a replacement. And I'm just putting a little bit of tear and tape in each corner. I don't need to cover the entire back of it. And that's going to give a really strong hold. And the twines are thin enough that it's not really bulging right there. Sometimes when we have some of our thicker ribbons, they will have a little bit of a bulge here. And so when that happens, I will just use the mini glue dots, and then I put the set of dimensionals between those 2 layers so that the dimensionals give me space for those thicker ribbons to go between the 2 layers. But because these are nice and thin, I didn't need to do that. Okay. Then I used the standard die cuts out of that, and I just cut some of these little sprigs. And I cut the label that I'm going to be stamping my sentiment on. So I have that here as well. And then we have the leaf that I'm going to place there. So I'm just going to kind of tilt it around and decide how I like it, and just set that on there. And then I want that to stick. So again, I'm going to use some mini glue dots because of the dimension. Again, I mentioned the glue dots are a little bit thicker, and so that's going to take into account the texture that is on each of the leaves and the texture on the front of the card. So that's going to allow those to stick really well, and it's not going to fall off. I also like to use them on these little sprigs because I can push them down into the glue dot and then lift this off. And now it's sticky, and I can decide where I want that to go behind my sentiment, but I better stamp it first because we don't want any thickness behind that when we're stamping. We want that nice and flat. So let me bring out my copper clay. Again, this is a fabulous in color for fall. It was one of those I wasn't excited about when it first came out, but now that fall has happened, I'm really liking it. So I'm going to place that off to the side so that I make sure and clean that right away. I don't want that color to stain. I want to show you Cajun Craze, because Cajun Craze is something we have had around for a while. And it's just a little more kind of orangish red. So that's the difference between Cajun Craze and Copper Clay. And then the other color it's similar to is Pecan Pie. So Pecan Pie is a little more brown, and this is a little more red, and this Copper Clay fits right in the middle. And if you are curious about colors and how they work together, then you may be interested in a new product that's coming out from Stampin' Up! That will help with that. They're going to be giving us a color coach. And so this is something you'll be able to purchase online when the November online exclusives go live. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe the 5th of November. This will be available. And then you can work the triadic where they go, you know, this way, or you can do complementary colors, you can do opposites. And so we'll be talking more in the future about how colors work and how they go together and how you can come up with color combinations that will always work on your cards. And the color wheel is super helpful with that. And so it's got a little bit of direction on the back, but we're going to dig into that a little more, and I'm going to put something up on my blog talking more about how to work with colors. But that's coming. Okay, back to our little sprigs. As I said, I put the little mini glue dot on there. Let's do a couple more. And I'm working with 3 of them because that's what the artists tell us to do, is to work in odd numbers. Apparently it's more pleasing to the eye. And then it came off a little, they're a little bit long there, but that's easy enough for me to come in and just snip off that excess. I liked to have a little more grip underneath my mini dimensionals so that they just hold a little better, or mini glue dots, sorry. I'm going with dimensionals next. The dimensionals are going to be on the front. And so I'm going to raise up our sentiment on the front of our card. Okay. So there is the front of our card. And then I'm going to take, like I said, this is going to go in the middle. Now, standardly, I have almost always done a very vanilla or a basic white on the inside. But the basic beige is light enough that we can stamp directly on that and it's still going to work. Okay, so here is very vanilla and basic white, and this is our basic beige. So I'm going to come back in with the stamps. I'm going to use this big one because that's what we used on the front. We used the die, but that shape. Okay, and then I want this to kind of hang off the edge because it's too big to stamp on that whole layer. It's going to take up the whole thing. But I can have it hang off the edge. And I'm going to ink directly on this, but what you could do is you could ink this with your blending brushes or sponge daubers, and you could sponge daub ink onto there, or even use your classic markers, the Stampin' Write markers, and you could add multi-colors onto there and give this a little more dimension if you wanted. But I'm just going to go straight ink for right now because we're going to get into some more color with Monday's video. we're going to use the baby wipe technique. Is anybody familiar with the baby wipe technique? Is that something you've done before, or is this going to be new? Or maybe just a good refresher? Oh, let's do one more. Let's see. Get a little note to brighten your day. You are amazing in every way. So to mount these, we know that I like to lie them on my grid paper and then line it up with one of the lines, and then I'm going to line up my block with a line as well. And then I'm going to line up my layer with the grid. And by doing all of this, keeping everything in line with the grid, that's going to give me my best chance at stamping that straight. And then we're ready to put this on the inside of our card. So there is today's card. Monday, as I said, we're doing the baby wipe technique, and we're bringing back another fun fold. So a nice and simple one, because we're mostly going to be focusing on the technique of the baby wipe and how we can get these multi-colors that go around. And I went with kind of all fall colors. I went with Cajun Craze, Old Olive, and Crushed Curry. But you could do this a little bit softer and just do a variety of greens, a variety of the like Cajun Craze, Wild Wheat, Copper Clay, and give it more of a just a kind of a monotone, but just have it more shaded. But I gave it multicolors. And again, it's fall, so I'm sticking with the fall colors, but this technique will work with any of the colors. But we're once again using this Changing Leaves bundle. It's an online exclusive, so it's not available in a catalog. It's something that you have to look online to see. Okay, so does anybody have any questions? Okay. For the prize patrol, I've kind of changed it up a little bit, and I'm asking that you like and share, because that's going to get me a little more reach on YouTube and Facebook. And then I have to manually pull something, and I have to apologize. I did not get around to pulling a name from our video on Monday, so I will announce on Monday the video for that, for last Monday and for this Thursday. Because I got a little bit sidetracked. I know I mentioned last time I've been having a little bit of heart issues, and I am so amazed. They told me I would have to wear a heart monitor, but have you guys worn one of those lately? I was like shocked. It's like, that's it. That's like all there is to it. It's just these two little electrode things and then the button in the middle, and if I have an issue, I push the button, and then I have to log it in an app on my phone. I just was like shocked. Technology is just amazing. I am just totally impressed. So anyway, I will see you back here on Monday when we play with the baby wipe technique, and we'll draw the winners for our prize patrol. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you on Monday. Thanks.